Alright everyone, now it's time for a little bit more election analysis because of course the second that the other ones were over, everyone started talking about the midterms anyway. The impact regarding Youngkin's win in Virginia, what does this actually mean for the midterms? You have some people, I think slightly hyperbolically saying, well, it means the Democrats are headed for the legendary wipeout. I would agree that I think they're having some significant issues and I can't see them holding maybe the House or the Senate at this point. I think that they've got a better than 50-50 chance of losing both. Are we going to see a Tea Party-style House surge? Are we going to see like a Reagan wipeout moment? That remains to be seen, but here's my analysis of what it really means. Here's the importance. Here's the part that convinces me that the Democrats should be panicking right now and they should be desperately reformulating. And then I'll get into why I think the midterms stay going in that general direction. Not good for the Dems, great for the Republicans. Structurally, there's some structural reasons why I don't think the Democrats can really turn things around in the next year. What it does mean is that two of the most perennial issues the Democrats trot out, generally speaking, during elections, sometimes to reasonable favorability, especially among liberal voters, but including certain independent blocs, two of those main issues are now off the table. The first one is Trump. They'll keep using it, which is, again, it's like watching the least intelligent animal fail over and over in a cognitive test, continuing to press the same little red switch that shocks it in the rectum. They're going to keep doing that, but it shows that simply saying your opponent is Trump over and over again doesn't work. Trump, by the way, finds this hilarious. I'm sure the candidates find it a little bit annoying as well, because they're like, well, I mean, I was endorsed by Trump, but I've got various other views. I'm not even running for a federal office. I'm running for fucking governor. And they keep trying to compare me to Donald Trump. You could have worse comparisons, of course, but then again, you want to be seen for your own merit as well. Not just, hey, my platform is Charlottesville or whatever. Secondly, education. The Democrats, for the first time in a very, very long time, are now lagging behind on education as a core issue. The problem is the Democrats usually do fairly well with blocs that would be concerned about education because of the money argument. Wow, we want universal pre-K and stuff. The Democrats lost on education despite, as a federal level sort of policy, at least optioning universal pre-K, free community college, free at point of delivery, of course, which would overwhelm the community college system. It would also harm universities. It'd be very, very interesting if this policy were implemented to see how shitty the education would be. Probably pretty shitty. To be clear, if you have kids, you should definitely be looking into homeschooling and tutoring and things like that now. If you don't have the money or the time to homeschool, and you don't have the money for a private school, at least try to get together with some neighbors or something. One neighbor knows a foreign language, they tutor your kids. You're really good at math, you tutor theirs, or something like that. Even if it's just a part-time gig, the educational system now in most schools in the U.S. is failing our children. The Republicans have managed to take one of the main, at least family-centric issues, which matters to millions of voters, and rob it from the Democrats. Well, you know, going into the midterms, if you're shy just 1 million votes nationwide, that could flip a lot of House seats. There aren't that many voters required for a congressional district of that level. In certain states, could tip the balance of power. You could end up seeing a bunch of vulnerable Dem senators and representatives get kicked out. The Dems are trying to primary some aside, the leftoids others. They've got a schismatic mess within their party. The reason why I think this is so significant is that I don't see that changing before the midterms. Most of the Democrats are still stubbornly supporting critical race theory, or they've got their head in the sand and are pretending it's not even being taught, which gives easy ammunition to Republican candidates because they can point out ways in which that's a total fucking lie in many curricula around the country. Now, in some states, it's not the case. It's not going to be the case in most private schools because, you know, they actually have to educate your kid or they don't get paid. It's probably not the case with most homeschoolers. They tilt off into the right wing mostly, tend to be more on the religious side, actually, separatist groups and stuff. Political outsiders, they don't want their kid in a public school. You know, the self-employed, the independently wealthy and stuff. People who typically are going to be in the economic echelon that doesn't really vote Democrat at large levels. The super rich love the Democrats. The working rich, not so much, because they can't just shuffle money around and use tax loopholes made by people like Joe Biden, ironically enough, over the last few decades, since the Reagan administration, essentially, or going back to Jimmy Carter. The Youngkin win shows that the demoralization attempt as well, that is not completely organic, that you see mainly online, didn't work either. That's the other big thing, and the Democrats, I don't think, have enough time or the capability necessarily in a structural sense to change any of these things. The economy, going beyond the Youngkin win, the economy, do you envision it getting notably better before the midterms? I don't. I think the shortages persist, the inflation persists, even Janet Yellen agrees it will through the middle of next year. Even if you have the last quarter before the midterms and things get better, a lot of people will still be hurting. You've got lockdownerism. You'll have less now because you'll have a Republican governor and lieutenant governor and House as well in Virginia. So Virginia will probably be open for business. But there are numerous states in the U.S. where they're still closed for business. Travel is a hassle. It's inordinately expensive. The ports have COVID restrictions applied to them. This will get worse if the OSHA mandate actually gains legal teeth. Biden already punted that issue too, showing that the vaccine mandate's horseshit that doesn't even add up to necessity, which means that'll probably get thrown out in court. The slew of Dem losses goes beyond just Terry McAuliffe making a mistake. I do say that Terry McAuliffe, in the 11th hour, saying that he doesn't think that parents should be involved with teaching their kids, making teaching decisions, was a big mistake. The problem is that now that sound clip is going beyond Virginia. It's being used by other Republicans successfully. Education has managed to become a major issue. And for the first time, it's not an issue on which the Democrats have an advantage. They have a deep disadvantage, a double-digit disadvantage across pretty much the whole country. If that impacts even a few million voters, a small proportion of the electorate in the midterms, it will be bad for the Democrats. But then again, even before this happened, and this will demoralize Dem voters possibly too, which could compact the issue. Even before that, there were polls showing that the congressional ballot race, which normally it's going to be 5 or 6 points in favor of the Dems, it's only a couple points now, and a few polls showed it basically a tie, or the Republicans ahead by a point or two. That really doesn't tend to happen. Typically, the in-party loses in the midterms. They lose some power in the midterms. But the problem is, because there are so many more registered Dems in the country, and I realize that tilts off towards urban areas, so it only impacts certain states. It doesn't impact, the vast core of rural America. It only impacts some suburban regions. The problem is that if you're polling federally, and your sample is going to include considerably more Democrats, and you see a tie, that's not great. That shows that turnout is going to be, again, I believe, in favor of the Republicans. There's nothing to energize the Democrats, even if they pass the infrastructure bill. If it's shaved down too much, the younger leftist voters won't be excited. They'll stay home. If you make it too large, not only do you compact the economic issues, potentially impacting all voters broadly at some level, but then the more moderate Dems in certain red states or swing districts, then they get pissed off. How are you supposed to rectify the situation? And nothing else that Biden has planned at the moment is going to energize people. There's no border plan. There's no considerable fiscal reform plan. The infrastructure bill is the end-all be-all of basically all of what he wants to do. The climate change accords and stuff that Biden keeps trying to play up, that's not particularly exciting except to leftists. And it helps energize people who don't want the globalism involved with things like the Paris Climate Treaty, etc., the climate accords. I think in the midterms, this is a bellwether for it. And by the way, the entire legacy media correctly agreed with this summation until it looked like McAuliffe might reasonably lose, at which point, magically, all of them started retracting their previous position from months before and saying, don't worry, it's not actually that bad. It's not a bellwether of things to come. The Democrats will handle it, don't worry. They're trying to keep all of their pawns from being demoralized at this point. Meanwhile, the demoralization attempt on non-leftoid voters, not just Republicans, but other groups as well, certainly independents like me, has failed. The idea of just stay home because printer go burr falls flat when you look at Virginia, because most of the elections in the U.S. either weren't fortified to begin with or have been defortified in the process now. The ones that remain are just heavy blue states that are going to go heavily Dem anyway, and even then, turnout differentials almost caused the Dems to lose New Jersey. Again, ballot printer go burr, but they didn't burr enough at first, and they had to freeze voting for vote counting for almost 24 hours in order to get their final result. They didn't have enough wet ink ballots, I guess, on hand. They had to improve. They'll be printing off more of them. You can look for very high turnout in the midterms, much of which will be, honk-honk votes. But I don't think it'll be enough. I think the Republicans will kick ass. And I think the better part, because I'm not a Republican and a lot of them are like Democrats, the really great part is that a lot of them that will prevail and kick out some Dems, they're populists. They're populistic or quasi-libertarian. They're not yesterday's. They're not like Bush. They're not the old neocon Republican partisans of war and corporate handouts and all this other shit. They actually appear to want some degree of reform, which is something that other than Trump and Rand Paul and a few others, we haven't really seen in the country since Ronald Reagan started getting dementia. Ever since then, it's been globalist bullshit. Ronald Reagan basically becomes a steward in '86 or thereabouts, and the rest is history. Herbert Walker, globalist neocon CIA spook, of course, glowy, literally a glowy president. Clinton speaks for itself. George W. speaks for himself. Obama was a globalist. Biden is a steward globalist. He starts off with dementia. He's not really in charge, but as a figurehead, basically the same. Pursuing the same Bush-Obama-style policies that have failed consistently for, almost 40 years now. I think the midterms will be very, very interesting. That's about all. Peace out.